I'm going to do my best to be both as clear and as brief as possible on this topic, because it can be confusing and vast in its complexity. I think it's important though. To me, it seems vital to have a basic understanding of the mental process of reading. Your writing places difficult cognitive demands on your readers, and understanding those demands will help you to write clearer, more readable prose. It also helps to explain why certain sentence structures are more pleasing to readers than others. So here goes. The first place to start is with the term working memory. Another way to think of this cognitive system might be as the container of your conscious mind. It's the stuff you're thinking about right now, and it's the place in which you live your life, every waking moment from now until the day you die. Pretty heavy, eh? Now, not to get too philosophical about it, but this container is very, very small compared to the totality of knowledge in your awesome brain. And you can test how big your working memory is very easily online. Usually these tests use random word generators: cat, Himalayas, giraffe, ocean, patience, farm, etc. And your job is to retain those items in your cognitive container and repeat them back to the tester. The more you get right, the better your working memory. For our purposes, let's call our working memory capacity 7, because that's about the number of things the average mind can hold in a test like that. It's one of the reasons phone numbers are 7 digits long. If they were any longer, people wouldn't be able to remember them. Not that they have to anymore. The conscious act of reading takes place in this same container, the same container that under ideal circumstances can hold about 7 things for a few seconds at best, before all those things go leaking out and other things come pouring in, like the laundry you forgot to do, the fact that you want a coffee, and that stupid insurance company jingle you're trying to get out of your head. Point being, this container, as spectacularly complex and wondrous a thing it is from a cognitive and evolutionary standpoint, it's also very limited for our purposes as readers and writers. But there's hope. We do read and write pretty well for glorified chimpanzees, after all. One of the things that has helped us to read so well is a cognitive trick called chunking. We perform this trick almost automatically. Let's take that phone number example, for example. You have a number, 5983418. You wouldn't actually tell someone your phone number like that, right? Instead, you'd say 5983418. Essentially, you've just chunked 7 digits into 5 numbers, and you can hold those numbers in your cognitive container for quite a bit longer now, and with less effort, too. You've chunked down the data and freed up some cognitive space for other things. That's important to remember when writing, because we're all dealing with the same problem as our readers. Our cognitive containers can only hold so much. Reading is not a task we perform naturally, which is why it takes 16 years to learn to do it fairly competently and far longer to do it well. Writing systems have evolved separately only a handful of times in the course of human history, and only once has an alphabetic system evolved. Everyone else had to learn the alphabetic system of writing from those original progenitors. It's pretty incredible to think about. So we're not naturally built to read and write sentences the same way speech is instinctive to humans. This means it takes a tremendous amount of cognitive capital to read. It is a skill acquired with tremendous lifelong effort. This is also why very few people speak in complete sentences, much less complex sentences. And they only do it after many years of cognitive training, mostly on how to write, because writing teaches you how to form sentences. If you've had kids or been around them, you know how difficult it is when they're first trying to sound out words. It takes them forever to read a sentence, because they need to pronounce and then string together each syllable. Then, as they get better at recognizing letters, they begin to recognize groups of letters, called consonant clusters, and then begin to chunk groups of clusters together. Reading gets a little easier when this happens. Then, kids read so many words, usually sometime in middle or high school, that they don't process the letters anymore, just the words. Essentially, we've trained to read so much that the letters and words part of the cognitive challenge now takes us 0 cognitive capital. That frees up a lot of space in our cognitive container to do other things like process more complex sentence constructions and more complex ideas. Great. So what does this have to do with rhythm in sentences and parallel construction? Check out these two sentences. Essentially, they contain nearly identical information, but one sentence is parallel and the other isn't. The president promised to reform healthcare, to preserve Social Security, and to balance the budget. Versus, the president promised to reform healthcare, the preservation of Social Security, and legislation mandating a balanced budget. They're both grammatically correct, but when I read those two sentences in sequence, the second seems like somebody threw on the brakes. Did you notice that? The parallel construction is much faster. But why? If you guess that it has something to do with the limited amount of space in your working memory and chunking, well done, you got it. The first sentence is a parallel construction. As you begin reading it, you process the subject and the verb first. President promised. You're going to hold that in your working memory because you recognize it as the most important part of the sentence. Then you move on. Next you notice the infinitive phrase, to reform. Reform what? Healthcare. Okay, good. But there's a comma. You know something else is coming. To preserve Social Security. Great. Sounds like a good deal. What's next? Another comma and an and. You've seen that construction before and you know what it means. It means another infinitive phrase, to something is coming. And no surprises here, you get to balance the budget. At this point, you can ignore the grammatical constructions because they're identical. Your mind is now free to chunk the information as you process the full meaning of the sentence. President promised. Healthcare, Social Security, balanced budget. You've essentially got 4 items to carry in your cognitive container, which leaves some room left over to process extra things like what that means for the country or whatever. In the second sentence, a faulty parallel, you process the subject and the verb in the same way. President promised. Next comes the infinitive phrase, to reform healthcare, just as in the first sentence. Only this time when you get to the comma, there's something different after it. Instead of another familiar infinitive phrase, you get the preservation of Social Security, a rather abstract noun phrase. Now your working memory needs to do more than simply add another item to a list. Your cognitive container needs to process the difference between these two grammatical constructions and extract the meaning of these two items at the same time. That takes a lot more cognitive capital. The reader will experience this as the sensation of slowing down. Things get even more difficult for the reader when they get to the third item in the series, which is another faulty parallel noun phrase. Then, if that's not enough, your reader's brain must process all 3 of these mismatched items within the context of the original proposition, the president's promises. No small cognitive feat. If you think of this as mental juggling, that second sentence throws a lot of spinning knives, bowling pins, and chainsaws into the air, and good luck catching them all. So why not do your reader a favor and try to form sentences that only fill up the cognitive container halfway? Let's look at another faulty parallel to hammer this point home. Marta loved watching the marathoners running past in April, the Independence Day parade in July, and observing the Veterans Day procession in November. That sentence is grammatically correct, technically, but it's not doing the reader any favors, which, in turn, does the writer no favors either. This is how a reader gets frustrated and puts down the writer's book. The reader will process that first line, Marta loved watching, and think, Marta loved watching what? Then comes the list of 3 items. Let's examine each of these 3 items individually. Marta loved watching the marathoners running past in April, the Independence Day parade in July, observing the Veterans Day procession in November. Common to all 3 elements in the series is a month of the year, so we can keep that commonality. They also start with the article the, which we'll keep as well. Grammatically, the 3 items are different though. One is a noun phrase, and the other 2 are gerund phrases. I'm going to turn those 2 gerunds into noun phrases because we already have a gerund, watching, that precedes the list. Let's make this list parallel. The marathon in April, the Independence Day parade in July, the Veterans Day procession in November. And see if you can hear how much easier this sentence reads. Marta loved watching the marathon in April, the Independence Day parade in July, and the Veterans Day procession in November. Parallel construction is one of several common sentence constructions that help make prose flow more freely. A big reason for this is that syntactic similarity reduces your reader's cognitive load. Smooth, flowing prose has a rhythm to it that stems both from the ease of syntactically similar constructions and from your reader's expectation of their appearance. Parallel constructions aren't the only syntactic patterns that help your sentences flow smoothly. We'll look at a few more great constructions in the next lesson.